So our school is the Manny Cantor Center, and we serve 250 children ages 0 through 5 of diverse socioeconomic backgrounds on the Lower East Side in Manhattan. We follow a Reggio-inspired emerging curriculum. We focus on the close observation of the children and deepening their learning process as they construct their own knowledge. So we highly value relationships and play as tools for children's learning. And teachers create curriculum threads based on the children's skills and interests. So in this webinar, we're going to discuss how we've translated these values and our routines from the real classroom into our new virtual community, and also address some challenges we've faced since becoming virtual. So now my teammate, Steph Rios, is going to tell you about what we've been doing in our toddler classroom.
So in our toddler classroom, we serve 11 students from 10 families, all of whom are currently between 18 and 24 months old. They're mostly from high socioeconomic status backgrounds. So our immediate goals when our school was closed were to maintain communication with parents and ensure their basic needs and mental health needs were being met. To provide a way for the children to continue to communicate and interact with each other and their teachers, and to empower the parents to facilitate developmentally appropriate and child-led learning experiences at home. To accomplish these goals, we put in place a daily update every morning from the teachers to the parents, which could include activity ideas and a read aloud video or an explanation about a classroom routine and how they can recreate it at home. We also are holding daily Zoom morning meetings, which follow the routine of our in-school morning meeting.
So something else that was important to us was making everything easy and simple to access for the parents. In this stressful time, the last thing that we wanted to do was ask parents to learn how to use new technologies or apps that were going to stress them out more. With the population in our classroom, we weren't too worried about them not having access to internet-connected devices to use for learning, but that's an important challenge you might have to consider in some of your classrooms. For most of the school year, we were used to communicating mainly with parents via email, so we wanted to continue to do that since they're used to that. And for virtual morning meetings, we decided to use Zoom. Zoom makes it really easy for parents to join. The teacher just needs an account, and the parents can just follow the link to join the meeting. Right. Please keep yourself muted so that we don't get any feedback from any other screens. Thank you. So the teacher can just simply send the link to parents, and they can connect by clicking on it. And we use a recurring meeting link, so the link stays the same every single day. They don't have to be waiting for us to send it every morning. And parents can also use it on their phone, their laptop, or their iPad, leaving other devices in their house available for others who might need them for work or at the same time. So if anybody has any questions about that, feel free to type them in the chat and we can address them. Otherwise, we'll continue to tell you about StoryPark, another platform that we use. All right, Steph, do you want to go ahead and tell us about StoryPark? Sorry guys about the internet. I know it's been slow lately. We have a suggestion in the chat that if more people turn off their video, that might be able to increase the audio quality. So if you guys can turn off your video, that would be great. All right, so Steph, do you want to tell us a bit about StoryPark and our daily updates?
Sure. So for our daily updates, we decided to use a new platform, StoryPark. Using StoryPark allowed us to easily arrange and lay out the text, pictures, and video of our content, and allows parents, hang on, my screen just got way too big. Oh, sorry. Oh boy, my screen just got way too big. There we go. Sorry, I just lost my part. Okay. So, unlike simply emailing these updates, StoryPark creates an archive where everything is in one place and parents can go through and find older updates. Here you see an example of one of our layouts where we're able to include video, we can add text in the different tabs, and we're also able to like shift pictures around and arrange them accordingly. And if you're working off of a Mac or an iPad and you have Pages, you can also include like a PDF from Pages in there as well. Okay. So StoryPark also has a community board for parents to start conversations and post updates to each other. Another advantage of StoryPark is that all the classrooms at our school decided to use it. So all the parents can only see the content of their child's classroom. Teachers can see other teachers' content and better collaborate and be inspired by others. Because StoryPark was new for the families in our class, we continued to send the updates via email and StoryPark for the first few weeks until we were sure all the families were set up on StoryPark. We're lucky that our school has Jackie Weinland, our assessment coordinator, whose job is to help teachers use tools such as StoryPark and support us in the technology aspect of it. Here's Jackie to share a little bit more about Manny Cantor's decision to use StoryPark as a platform.
Hi, everyone. My internet is also a bit choppy, so please give me a signal if I break up. So when we thought about choosing a platform for supporting children and families from a distance, we knew that we would need specific features that would facilitate meaningful ongoing engagement. Namely, those features for us were accessibility, multiple mediums for interaction, and a place for archiving resources and activities that teachers and families make. In our case, the platform we decided on was StoryPark, which a few of our UPK classrooms had already been using throughout the year. When we started distance learning, we decided to roll it out for all of our classrooms because it has all of those features that we mentioned. In terms of accessibility, it's a really user-friendly platform that can be translated into multiple languages and is overall easy to use. And while there may be a learning curve for parents, StoryPark already has a really deep help section that's easy to search and covers all features of its site. In terms of multiple mediums for interaction, when teachers send out content, parents and children can respond via text, photos, videos, or even voice recordings, which can be really wonderful. This feature makes ongoing communication flexible so that it's not simply expecting parents to write back via text. Parents also have the option of creating their own stories or community posts to share with teachers and their classroom peers. And as was mentioned previously, StoryPark also stores content in a way that enables parents and other teachers to easily access content, whether that content was made from that day or several weeks ago. As we know, emails often get lost, especially during this time when there's so many people working from home. Keeping that content in a central location like StoryPark allows parents to visit and revisit what teachers have created. So StoryPark was developed by educators in New Zealand who follow the Te Wariki approach. This approach is quite similar to our Reggio Emilia approach, and both pedagogies understand that we learn in communication and relationship with one another. There are a few other platforms that work in a way that's a bit more similar to an Instagram-like model where communication is more of a one-way street from teacher to parent, and we didn't choose that one because of our values around how we learn through relationships. And I'm gonna throw it back to Hanna now.
Thanks, Jackie. So without us being there to prepare materials, observe, and react to the children's work, now their parents are going to be the ones that are actually facilitating these provocations with them. So our goal with sharing updates is not only to show them, here's something you can do right now with your child, but also to help them gain skills in interacting and facilitating their children's play in the future. So I'm going to show you an example of an update that we shared with families. All right, can you see my screen? Okay, I'm just gonna assume you can. So in this pretend play update, we started with photos and examples of what pretend play looked like in the classroom before we were virtual. And we hope that by sharing the pictures of the children, the parents can also show the children the pictures of themselves and their friends, and this can create another home to school connection, and they can talk about their friends that they're missing. Then we go on to explain to the parents what the children are learning when they are doing pretend play. And we give parents specific suggestions of materials in their house they can use to facilitate these kind of pretend play experiences, so they know how to do it at home. Then we help them, give them a little tips on how to engage with the child and prompt them to extend the pretend play. This way the parents can build their skills and practice them over and over again when playing with their child, and not just today. So now I'm going to give it to Cherise Sierra, who's going to tell you a little bit about what these updates look like in a classroom with even younger children in her infant room.
Hi, everyone. Like Hannah said, my name's Scharisse. I'm a teacher in one of the Manny Cantor Center's infant rooms. And my classroom is also Reggio-inspired while following Magda Gerber's RIE philosophy, which is based on respect for the infant as an individual and trusting in the baby to be an initiator, explorer, and a self-learner. So the children in room 115 are now between the ages of 6 and 24 months. We started about 3 months. We kind of have a varying amount of ages in the classroom. And we've decided against a lot of screen time content for our classroom because we don't feel that it's developmentally appropriate. Our team decided to focus on sharing information with parents that will help them meet the needs of their children while sticking to our class routine and continuing the work that we were doing right before school closed. Each week we've been sending out a mini story, which we'll actually talk a little bit more about later in this webinar. But this mini story explains about the learning experiences that the children were engaged in, and then we expand on that mini story throughout the week with provocations and ideas for parents in order for them to expand on what their child was learning. For example, right before we left, several of our younger infants were working on eating solids for the first time. We created content for the parents to teach them how we feed the children, the infants in our classroom, using a baby-led weaning approach. And we also gave them a separate documentation with links to resources that they could use and hopefully find helpful at home. So let me just share my screen with you, and I can just kind of give you an example of what we posted that week for the infant-led feeding. So what we had done was twofold. We created a video. Let me actually, here we go. We'd created a video where I discussed ways to initiate baby-led weaning, which I'll share with you now. Hi everybody, I wanted to talk to you today about infant-led feeding, which is a way of letting your child feed themselves from the time they're about 6 months old and onward. It's a method of feeding your infant that also means that if you don't want to, you don't ever have to use purees. Obviously, if you're more comfortable using purees when you start feeding your child, that's perfectly fine. But I just wanted to show you a way that you can start maybe introducing some foods that your child can feed themselves. So let me bring you over here to my cutting board. So we have what we're looking at for foods for infants when they're about 6 months old is food that's about the size of your finger. So it's something that they can hold onto, like this nice stick of cheese or this cheese curd. They can also eat raw vegetables at this point, like cucumber, bell peppers, avocado. I like to leave the bottom of the avocado on so it's not so slippery and slimy and they can really hold it and eat it. I have a ginormous blueberry that also works. So you kind of get the idea on the video piece. And then we posted a documentation that I had written using some photographs that I've been collecting just for my own purposes that show how to feed your baby. So this can actually be downloaded and the parents can refer to it, later. But it's something that we found was really helpful in terms of letting the parents like be active participants in what we were doing at school and having them work on it at home.
Yeah, so I apologize again for the technical difficulties, but if there was any part of that where we broke up and you didn't get the content, just let us know in the chat and we'll try and go back and hit that again. And any questions, just throw them in the chat. And then Steph is going to talk to us about morning meetings in our young toddler classroom.
So we use Zoom for our morning meetings. Morning meetings are a very important part of our distance learning model because they're the only time the whole community connects with one another. We found that this worked because we had already set up morning meetings in the real classroom, and children were accustomed to the routine, which we tried to recreate in a similar way in our virtual model. We begin by singing a name song, then we take song requests from the students, and then end with the story read by a teacher. Here we'll show you some examples of our virtual morning meetings with everyone logging on.
Start video. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good.
We're ready for a
So when the children and families start first joining the video, they're excited to see their friends and say hello to one another and the teachers.
Oh, look, there's Edu. Hi, Lauren, Edu.
Hey, how's it going? Hello, Edu.
How's everybody doing?
Yeah.
That looks like Justin's room.
And then after everyone is there, then we start singing our name song. Here's a short clip of our name song.
A bumpity bumpity yellow bus. Won't you say your name for us? Listen so what a wonderful name. And the Marks family, bumpity bumpity yellow bus. Won't you say your name for us? Oliver, Rowan, Eleanor, Jacqueline, and Matt. Oliver, Rowan, Eleanor, Jacqueline, and Matt. What wonderful names. Take turn, Buck.
And after that, then we offer the children an opportunity to request songs that they would like to hear. In the real classroom, we have laminated cards with photos on them, which correspond to the songs we sing often. And the children can request songs verbally or by showing us the card. For virtual morning meetings, we emailed these cards to families. Some families who have a printer printed them, and others drew their own pictures. For families who weren't able to print them, we have a teacher hold up the cards in her video screen as a visual cue while we sing.
Thanks for joining us. Alice has a song that I like to sing. There's a song you want to
Yes, that's Twinkle Twinkle.
Nina? All right, get your twinkle ready. Twinkle's ready. Where's your twinkle, Nina? Twinkle, your twinkle. Little star. How
Also in our real classroom, toddlers love books. They can touch and turn the pages themselves and bring us a book off the shelf that they would like to hear. But online, we need to do even more to capture their attention with movements and props. At their young age, they also need their parents to help encourage them to copy our actions. This live reading allows us to see all the screens while we're reading and to be responsive to the children as if we're in the real classroom. Using Gallery, we can see them all and we can see each other. If we simply recorded a video of ourselves reading and sent it to the parents, we wouldn't be getting this instant feedback of how the children are reacting to it. So here's a short video of our read along.
are another word for hat. So I'm going to get ready for this book by putting on all my caps. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, wow, Forrest and Soa, you have some caps at your house too. Amazing. Caps for sale. Once there was a peddler who sold caps. He carried them on top of his head, just like me. And just like Nina. And Estelle's showing us her head too. First, he had his own checked cap down there, and then a bunch of gray caps, and then some yellow caps. So you can see when I was reading, when I started putting on my hats, they all kind of leaned forward, and I could tell they were really engaged because I was doing something new and interesting. And then some of them went and got their own hats to wear as well, and I was able to notice that in the moment and comment on it. And then I'm going to show you another clip from that same read aloud where the children began to copy my actions as well. My caps. But the monkeys only shook their fingers back at him and said, "Zzz, zzz, 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 zzz." Oh yeah, I see some of you are shaking your finger as well, just like the monkey. You give me back my caps. This made the peddler angry. So he shook his hands at them and he said, "You monkeys, you give me back my caps. Give me back my caps." But the monkeys only shook their hands back at him and said, "Zzz, zzz, 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 zzz." By the time the peddler was really, really, really angry, so he stamped his feet and he shouted, "You monkeys, you must give me back my caps." But the monkeys only stamped their feet back at him and said, "Zzz, zzz, 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 zzz." At last, he became so angry that he pulled off his own cap and threw it on the ground. And he began to walk away. Yeah, I see some of you are throwing your caps on the ground too. But then So, of course, bringing those multimodal kind of participation structures into a read aloud is always important, but it's even more important here in the virtual screen. In the normal classroom, I would have sort of this physical space arranged to direct them towards paying attention to the read aloud. And I would have my co-teachers able to help a child physically redirect if they walk away, as well as being able to sort of make eye contact to communicate more non-verbally with a specific child. But here I don't have that, so it's all more difficult, and we really need to do as much as possible to make what we're doing in the screen interesting so that they will want to pay attention. So something else that we found is important in our distance learning is that we really need to take the parents' feedback into consideration. This is new for us and it's new for them, and nothing that we are planning is going to be effective if the parents aren't on board and willing to participate in it. So right after our school closed down, we sent a survey to the parents asking about things like what time will work well to have morning meeting, what platforms would work well for them to communicate with us and with each other. And that helped us inform sort of our initial plan for distance learning. And it revealed that a lot of parents wanted to use WhatsApp as a platform. So we listened to their feedback and we made a WhatsApp group where parents are able to talk to us and just talk to each other, or say something like, "Oh, it was so hard to get my child to take a nap today," and then have other parents comment back like, "Oh, same here, you're not alone." Now, after we were about 3 weeks in, we knew that some of the families' needs were changing, their situations were changing, and things might not be working as well for them anymore. So we sent another survey to get more feedback on what they liked, what they didn't like, or something new we could offer. That helped us refine our plans for how we're going to try and connect individually with parents. It seemed like a lot of them really didn't have the time to like have a phone call with us every week and would prefer more texting or emailing methods instead. In some of our individual check-ins with families, we also heard from them that screen time was a big issue on their mind. So I developed this resource to share with families about screen time because many of their children who are 18 to 24 months, they had never used a screen before, and now all of a sudden screens are being introduced to them and they wanted to do it responsibly. So I posted this on StoryPark for all the parents to see. I kind of started with this is what I'm hearing from you guys. This is the research that's out there about screen time and when children should use it and how, and summarize kind of the most important parts of the research in my own words for the parents. So that would be that the parents are previewing any media they're giving to their kids, not just letting them scroll through YouTube on a device by themselves, but making sure they know what's in the video, that it's appropriate for their child and that they're going to be interested in it. And then co-viewing, you'll notice that almost all the kids in our morning meeting videos, their parent is right there with them. They can help when we're doing twinkle twinkle little star movement. The parents can help say to their kids, look, make the twinkle motion. And that the key reason that screen time is quote unquote bad is because it encourages being sedentary. So we're trying to, in our morning meetings, create opportunities to not be sedentary, such as standing up and singing head, shoulders, knees, and toes, or asking them, oh, we're gonna sing a song about a monkey. If you have a stuffed animal monkey, go get it and bring it back. Then I also linked a few more articles that I previewed that seemed appropriate for parents to read in case they would like to do further research on their own. Yeah, so I use that to inform what parents can do at home and also to inform my own teaching when I am teaching virtually on morning meeting. So now I'm going to let Cherise tell you a little bit about how screen time concerns have influenced her work in the infant room.
Thanks, Hannah. So our team has maintained a really open dialogue with families during this time. Our classroom practices primary caregiving, so each teacher has a weekly check-in with their primary children and families. And these can either be a phone call or a Zoom call. And during these check-ins, we gather information about what types of supports our family need. How we can better support them during this time. And one of the things that kept coming up on these calls was the concern about screen time. Naturally. Many families were concerned about the amount of screen time that their infants had been experiencing, not just at school, but with like other family members and people who just kind of want to stay in touch. And however, they also didn't want to lose the connection to their classroom community. In order to create a balance and to keep our families and teaching teams engaged with one another, we decided to do an all-class Zoom with all the friends and all the parents on Fridays. Some parents attend the call with their kids. Some parents come without their kids and just come to check in with everybody. And so this is a great way for us to maintain being connected as a classroom and maintain that empathy and love and that wonderful feeling that we've cultivated and the culture that we've cultivated in our room. Our parents are also very active on the the community board in StoryPark. They share provocations that they've been doing at home with their infants. And for us as teachers, it's really satisfying to know that when we post content, most of our families follow along and to attempt to do the same work at home. I'm actually going to show you a documentation that a parent shared with us after the infant-led feeding, this is one of our babies, Freddie. And after we posted the infant-led feeding, her mom in the comments had shared this picture with us of Freddie trying her new foods out at home in an independent way. And then she also, you know, we've done like some painting and some other like loose parts materials exploration. And so she made this beautiful documentation to share, not only with us as teachers, but with all the families to see like what they've been doing at home. So it's a really nice way for us to stay connected and engage with parents while trying to minimize the amount of screen time that our infants have. Back to you, Hannah.
Thanks, Cherise. So yeah, I got a few questions for me to share the screen time article. So I've put that in the chat. I think you should be able to download it to your computer so you can save it for later. All right, so if there are no other questions at this time, then Steph is gonna get us started on the challenge of how teachers observe children to inform curriculum when we're not physically together.
So in the classroom, we set out provocations for the children to explore. We're able to observe them closely and document their learning experience. If the child isn't sure about what is set out, we can demonstrate that the items are okay to touch and explore any way they would like. With distance learning, this practice becomes tricky. What we have learned to do is send out a guide to parents, giving them steps of how to approach the activity with their child and ways they can recreate the experiences that their child has had in the classroom with materials that they may have at home. We request that the parents take photos or videos and share it with us when their child is done. Then with this information, we're able to help the parent navigate challenges they may have had. And I'm gonna send it back to Hannah.
Yeah, so a key part of documentation at Manny Cantor are mini stories, as Cherise mentioned earlier. So I'm going to show you here an example of what a mini story looks like. So we combine stories, or we combine text and pictures to kind of paint a picture of the child's learning in both more intentionally planned teacher facilitated activities and also just in moments of learning while the child is playing. So here I've used photos of the child doing the puzzle and also explained a little bit more about what she was doing, what she was saying, and how I interpreted it. So we share these with parents regularly. As soon as we write them, we share them with parents, and then they also go into the children's journey binders. Journey binders contain the photos and artifacts of work that they did throughout the year, and together they paint a picture of the child's development at a certain point in time. So they do follow the children throughout their entire time at our school. And some of the key questions that we reflect on when we're writing a mini story are: what is the child showing us they know? What questions is the child asking? What is motivating their work? How are they reacting to the work of other children or teachers? And what connections are being made? And what might the next steps be? So now that school is virtual, a challenge which came up was: how are we going to closely observe the children to know what their interests are, how their development is changing, and plan the next steps for this? So we try to solve this in two ways. Firstly, by encouraging the parent communication in the comments on StoryPark, asking them to send pictures and videos and updates of how at-home provocations are going. But secondly, we also decided to host one-on-one video provocations with a teacher. So for these provocations, they sign up for a time that works for them and for a topic and a teacher that they want to do it with. And then we tell them a few items to prepare. For example, we might have a building provocation where the teacher has blocks and the child has blocks, or a water play provocation where you both have that. So I am going to show you an example of a music and movement one-on-one provocation I did with a student. Here's the video.
Mama. You want Mama to do it again? But it's Rocco's turn. Hanna. You want Hannah to do it again?
Now, Rocco.
You were shaking it all day. you're shaking side to side. Shaking side.
So you can see it kind of takes her a little bit to warm up, and she benefits from having to first see me model shaking, then she also sees her mother modeling the shaking with her shaker, and then she's ready to shake it.
Side. You want to try shaking up and down? Nice. You want to open it, but we're using it as a shaker. Should we use our xylophone?
So here she takes a little bit of time to warm up to the new format, and she really benefits from seeing me model it and then also seeing her mother modeling it with the same physical object that's in front of her. And then she takes it in her own direction. I'm shaking my shaker up and down, but she has a different idea. She wants to shake it side to side as if the bus is driving. So this lets me be responsive to that, and I can shake mine that way as well, and then encourage her to try a new way up and down. You can also see that she's really got an idea at the end there. She wants to open the shaker. So we come back to that later, and I'll share another clip of where she opens the shaker.
What do we have?
So she's saying, open, please.
It looks like you really want to open yours. Why don't we see what's in there? I have a shaker and I have rocks inside mine. You want to show yours? I have rocks. You have money. You want to show her? What do we have? What do we have? Let's see. We've got a quarter, two. How many quarters are there? 2 quarters. See, they're tapping each other. I could take my 2 rocks and make it go tap, 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 tap. Tap, tap, tap. Do you want to put your 2 quarters and tap them together to make a cool sound? Or do you want to show her your 3 pennies? Tap, 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 tap. Tap, 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 tap. That makes a nice little dainty sound. Ding, 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 ding. Do you want to do yours too? Go ahead, girl. I'll put the quarters together. Ready? Okay, your turn. You want to put the 2 pennies together? You want to do the ones in your hand? Go. Tap, 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 tap. Ooh, it's such a quiet sound. It is a very
So you can see here, because she's the only child here and she doesn't want to shake anymore, she wants to open up and tap, I am able to pivot in that different direction and do that with her without taking away from anyone else's shaking experience. And then she's also building on the idea of tapping that we did earlier in the lesson. We were tapping on drums with mallets, but now she's taken her coins and she's tapping those as well. So all of these observations give me more of a sense of how Rocket's interests and abilities are evolving at home, and then I can incorporate this information into how I'm planning daily updates for the future and other learning experiences. Also then, using Zoom's record feature, I obviously recorded the entire experience and I could watch it again later. So I was able to write a mini story using screenshots that I took from the recording. So I screenshotted the relevant parts and then I wrote about it a little bit, and I shared that with the parents, and I'll save it for her journey binder when we do get to go back to school. So by continuing to write the mini stories, we're providing a sense of normalcy and continuity to the children and families, because their journey binders are going to follow them when they're in 2s, 3s, and 4s. They want to have a record of the learning that they did while they were at home, because they didn't come to school, but they were still learning and important developments happened, and it was an important part of history to record. So by saving all these mini stories, then at a later date, when we're able to get back into our classroom, we can print them out and put them in the journey binders. So I do see that some of you are having problems opening that PDF, and I will try and work on that while I throw it back to Steph.
So in these past 5 weeks, we've been able to recreate a virtual community that still allows for human connection and relationship building, exploration at home with open-ended materials, and parental feedback features so that teachers can plan next steps for students. It's a continual work in progress as the situation changes and the needs of our families change. We hope that this presentation can be helpful to other educators of young infants and toddlers. And with our remaining time, we'll try to answer any outstanding questions from the chat. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, so I see we have a question here. Do all parents participate so fully? And what can you do in situations where a parent cannot or is not as adept at modeling and participating in the provocation activity? I think that was a pretty good example of a parent being really willing to participate. I would say that some of the parents who aren't participating as fully, maybe their participation looks like they're not signing their child up for these one-on-one experiences. It's, I guess, in that situation, if the parent wasn't really sure how to react, you know, I could coach them a little or suggest, oh, maybe I'm going to shake it. Mom, can you shake it, to show the child? Sorry, what else was I going to say? Yeah, just that there was a moment in there too where she initially wanted to open the shaker and her mom said, no, we're not doing that, we're shaking. But I noted that she wanted to do that. So then we shook a little more. And then when it happened again, before mom could say no, so that I wasn't contradicting her, I said, oh, why don't we open the shaker? And that kind of gives the parent an idea like, oh, we can do that. Just because we planned it as music doesn't mean we can't take it in a different direction.
Hannah, I'd like to jump in really quickly. I see someone has a question about a drop in attendance in the Zoom meetings. Yeah, I've also experienced a bit of a drop of attendance in our Zoom meetings. I think our plan for this week is to reach out to our parents and just kind of like own that and acknowledge that and think about ways that we can reconnect as a classroom. Also, we were, you know, off for a little bit, so I think that that has to do with it. But yeah, I think that that's something that, you know, everyone's going through something right now, right? So it is a little tricky. And so I think that the only way to kind of really overcome this is to just continue maintaining connection and continue working on maintaining the culture in your classroom and the community in your classroom. So our goal for this week really has been to reach out individually and as a group to our parents to talk about kind of getting back together and getting back into the groove of attending our Zoom meetings. Hanna?
Thanks, Cherise. I'm just working here on trying to find a different format where I can send this PDF to people. Steph, if you want to answer some of the other questions about how many individual Zooms we do per day and week while I work on that.
Yeah, sure. So every week we gather and have a meeting and we set up a sign-up sheet in a Google Doc and we email it to our parents with just like a variety of activities and times that were available for their children and different provocations. So we try to do them every day, but sometimes we're not able to, which is okay. We don't always have to like do them every day, but it's nice to have it out there and give the parents these opportunities to join in on these one-on-one provocations. Sometimes they don't join, which is okay as well. They're probably also like very caught up in whatever may be happening with their own family and just getting into their own routine. But it's nice to offer them these opportunities. Let's
yeah,
see.
and I think that, you know, especially, you know, parents are juggling, working, taking care of an infant or a toddler, which is extremely hard. Like we know because we work with infants and toddlers. So I think we have to also kind of, you know, we're totally flexible. Like if a parent says, you know, I can't check in today at 1, but maybe when, you know, Aviva goes to bed, like I'll give you a text. Like I'm okay. I'm personally okay with that because I want to stay connected to my parents, even if it's like outside of my working hour or whatever. I mean, you don't have to do that, but I think that just for us, or at least for myself, it's just important to maintain that connection. So if they're coming to Zoom meetings or not, like that's not such a huge deal for me. What's important to me is that they're maintaining connections and involved in what their babies are doing at home, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And we also host the live morning meetings, and then we record those and we post them on StoryPark. So anyone who wanted to still see it but wasn't able to connect at that time, they could watch it later with their child and they would still be able to point and notice their friends and hear the songs. Oh, and I also wanted to mention that with the mini stories, although I showed you the example of the mini story that I wrote after doing a one-on-one video provocation, I've also been writing mini stories just using the pictures and videos that parents are texting me or emailing me about what their child is doing at home. So for example, I had a parent send me like a 1-minute long video of their 2 children doing some dramatic play together. And by closely watching and replaying the video, I was able to kind of write about it, take screenshots of the video, and sort of analyze the learning that's happening in there. So that's another way to help let parents know that, you know, what your child is doing at home is learning, even if you're not coming to our live videos. Oh, and I think we had a question for Jackie about the philosophy that you described when you were talking about StoryPark that is similar to Reggio and was developed in New Zealand. Can you address that, Jackie?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not seeing the question in the chat. Is it just the other philosophy?
Yeah, it's just what the name of the philosophy is.
Yeah, no problem. It's Te Wariki. I'm going to type it in the chat so you can see how it's spelled. It's a philosophy that was developed in New Zealand. It's strongly influenced by the indigenous people who make up a good part of New Zealand. And I believe it's actually part of their national curriculum. It's a really lovely approach. I'll type that in the chat now.
So I think we've addressed all the questions that I can see in the chat right now. If anybody else has another question or a comment, feel free to add it in the chat. Oh, someone's asking when this will be available to watch in replay. I'm not exactly sure, but we're gonna try and get it, you know, posted up on YouTube or something soon. Need to check in with the IT social media department of our school. And if you just want to email me again next week if you haven't heard anything, and I'll let you know if it's up and available. All right, well, thank you all so much for coming. I'm not seeing any more questions come into the chat. We really appreciated having you all here, and I hope this was helpful, and thank you for all the work that I'm sure you're doing in your own classrooms and communities. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, thanks for coming.
Bye.
Bye.